And here we are. This is Here and Now, weekly analysis of the ongoing geopolitical world tensions. But it's more than tensions now. There may even be a war beginning in the Gulf with the United States attack on Iran, which has been set up already. There's indications that this attack is imminent because the local navigation signals have been blocked, like GPS, in order to prevent the Iranian missiles from being able to use the American GPS systems to locate their targets of American bases and American warships.
Mm.
So that's why I have a certain sort of anxiousness with respect to the outbreak of the war, with the hope that Iran has set up its defense system so that its airspace cannot be penetrated, like what happened in Venezuela, whose defense system was totally taken out. Iran, though, may very well have the Russian S-400 or S-500 anti-missile missiles, and if they do, then they're in good shape. But
Oh, I just want to interject something here. Uh, you know, this whole coverage of this aggression against Iran by the United States is given such a normalized character as making me sick. Who is the United States to attack another country? That is the question. It's not being discussed. It's not being asked. It's not being put out there. It said, well, this war is coming. Okay, well, what's behind this war that's supposed to be coming? I mean, what's up with this? This needs to be discussed. It's almost as if we've reached a place in the world in history where a quote so-called great power or an imperialist country can attack a country. Oh well, they're just attacking. That's the way it is in the world. No, we don't have to live this way. There's another way of living without U.S. attacking. And in my opinion, the bombings that have been reported in Iran are the beginning of the war. And that's how I see it. And it indicates again the fifth column in Iran, which we're going to have to eliminate.
mm,
So I would like to, I'm not saying our conversation, but for those people who are listening or watching this broadcast, please ask yourself, why are you not questioning the whole essence of what is occurring? We must not accept that there is a war of the United States against and Israel against Iran. It is not acceptable. It is not justified. There is no reason for it besides the United States and Israel saying we can change your form of government, which takes away the right of Iranians to have sovereignty. And they have the right to have sovereignty. So any war by the United States or any imperialist country or great power against Iran is wrong on its face because Iranians have the right to sovereignty. They have a right to run their country, to have Islamic Republic, to have whatever kind of laws they have, a nuclear program they have. That is their right to have it because they are a sovereign nation. The United States has no right to tell it how to run its country. And because this is confused, when it comes to certain things, there is no confusion. But when it comes to aggression against another country, there still seems to be confusion in the narratives that are put out there. My narrative is the U.S. has no right to be bombing Iran, so I'm not going to talk about the war as something that it's coming. Okay, it is coming, possibly, possibly not, but it is something that is not justified in any respect because the United States, Israel has attacked Iran. Iran has countered Israel's attack. Now the United States has a right to attack Iran. What gives it that right? The Monroe Doctrine on steroids? What's up with this?
mm,
That's the discussion I want to hear, and I don't hear it among the broader population, and it concerns me. Our conversation is healthy and appropriate. Those conversations are just an extension of the propaganda that the United States and quote unquote great powers put out when they want to do something. Anyway, thank you. I'm happy we're talking about this. I'm sad about the situation, but it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, this is the imminent issue, but we need to talk about the United States as well. But with respect to Iran, you know, what is, this American administration doing? Like they don't have any right to declare war on another country. That's a
They
congressional
don't.
prerogative, right?
They sure don't. They sure don't. And this is what I've said to you in our off-camera conversations. This lack of the right to do it is not the conversations being held. And that's the discussion in the United States that has to be made. That conversation, we can have discussion about ICE and Border Patrol and the murders of the two people who were simply protesting ICE's brutality against the immigrant people. We can have that discussion. We can have the other conversation. The attack on Venezuela, the same thing.
Hmm.
That is not a conversation that's been held. What right do the United States have to attack Venezuela? Absolutely none. Monroe Doctrine doesn't mean anything. It's a piece of paper somebody wrote, and we say we got the right to do this. No, 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 no,
Hmm.
no.
Hmm.
I totally agree with you on this. Yes, correct.
Like Iran hasn't attacked the United States, hasn't attacked
Never,
even any American military base, outside of the
never,
United States.
never,
Nothing. Iran has
never.
done nothing against the United States.
Nothing whatsoever. Exactly.
Yeah,
Nothing. Not. I mean, nothing. Nothing at all.
yeah,
All Iran did in 1979 was overthrow the Shah, occupy the U.S. embassy, and then release the captives. That's it,
yeah, yeah,
and that was 46 years ago. That's it.
yeah,
Nothing else. No aggression. Not
yeah,
even a spy network. Not even a spy network arrested in the United States.
yeah,
Nothing.
nothing.
I'm saying, not even that.
Oh, did you
The,
hear about
the
the
nation.
Jewish
The,
Iranian Jewish spies in Israel spying for Iran?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, nothing. Nothing. They even
nothing
had
like that.
the
Yeah,
audacity that for the world community, so excuse me, for the imperialist powers to form to bully Iran into signing a joint comprehensive peace with JPCOA regarding Iran's nuclear program. Iran has the right to a nuclear program. Why? Because the United States has one. Because Russia has one. Because France has one. That's why it has the right to have one. If you can
mm,
have one, then I can have one. You can't
mm,
tell me I can't have one. Why?
mm,
Tell me why they can't have one.
mm,
I want to know. I mean,
mm.
I want to know why they can't have a nuclear program for peace or for a bomb.
Yeah.
That's my view for peaceful purpose for nuclear energy to fuel their energy receipts, or if they want to have a bomb, that's their right. You're bombing them. Why can't they have a bomb and defend themselves? I want to know.
There's an interesting
Because
point to
they're
be
not
made
because they're
here.
not European, because
Yeah,
they're not European and white, or within I mean, what's going on here?
yeah,
It's just a double standard.
yeah, yeah,
That's all. That's all. It's a double standard.
yeah,
And I'm sorry, I talk even in my profession, I talk against double standards. There's that one standard that's fair and right for everybody. The United
yeah.
States says, no, we have a right to bomb you. No, you don't. Sorry. No, you don't.
Yeah,
Mm.
um, there's a interesting okay. There's 2 points that I wanted to make here. First of all,
Sure.
like Netanyahu has been mouthing off, since like 20 years that Iran is on the verge of developing a nuclear bomb, and therefore, Israel has the justification to go in and prevent Iran from doing that. Okay, so let's see. 20 years later, like 25, 26 years later, we can say, well, if Iran had the potential to develop a nuclear bomb, evidently they didn't do so because they didn't want to develop a nuclear bomb and declared that they refused to develop a nuclear bomb for ethical, religious reasons.
Right. Right.
So they didn't develop a nuclear bomb, even though they had the capacity to do so. Okay. Now, when they say that Iran is about to develop a nuclear bomb, nowadays the same applies. Yes, Iran could develop a nuclear bomb if they wanted to, I mean, they could develop, like bigger centrifuges and purify the uranium-235 to 93%, as required for a nuclear bomb from the 60% that they have, at this point. They could do that, but they haven't. And they haven't gone beyond the 60%, in enrichment purification. So, like it's evident that they're not in the course of developing a nuclear bomb, even though they can. So, point one. Two, have you heard the latest MAGA justification for the murder of Mr. Petty, the most recent, victim of the ICE campaign of terror? The most recent, justification they have for murdering this nurse is that they have a video of him kicking a cop car. No, it's not a cop car, it's an ICE car, and spitting on an ICE agent. That's it. That's what they are trying to use as justification for killing this guy, murdering this guy. And then,
Let's talk about that. Now, knowing, I hate to say I'm an expert in the propaganda that cops put out after they murder someone, but I am somewhat of an expert on this. The first thing they always do is put the criminal record, supposed criminal record of the victim in the press. Since they can't do that now, since there doesn't appear to be one, then they said, what else? How else can we defame the character of the person we murdered? So here comes this video. The video might be AI generated. The video might whoever it came from. That's why they do this. It is the modus operandi whenever the cops murder someone in the United States. They have to put a video out or defame the character of the victim. To take that, and they use the news media to do it. They become the mouthpiece of the police departments or the local district attorneys. That's all this is, man. That's how they do it here. That's how it's done. If you're murdered by the cops are going to find some way to defame your character to make it seem like you should have been killed. And that's what they're saying. And it's disgusting.
mm-hmm.
What about the record of the officers who shot the man?
mm,
Where's their background?
mm,
It's probably they're not going to even let you know their names.
mm.
What a double standard we have here. The
Yeah,
man is dead. He should not be dead. And that's the bottom line.
yeah.
He should not be dead. Renee Good should not be dead. They did nothing, even in the broadest sense of aggression, against the officers involved.
mm.
That's it. And whenever we hear this, we have to say what I just said. This is part of your standard technique when you murder a person, when law enforcement or military, they have to give a modus operandi, a rationale for the actions of their murderers, and they use the news media to do it. That's it.
Yeah, it's incredible how the news media just repeats the press releases put out by the police or whatever.
They always do it.
Always.
Always. Without it's like they have a lifeline, let them avert a vein and artery to the from the news media to the police departments or the military, and they send some blood in, and they print it, and then they send in red blood and bring back blue blood. Yep,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well,
Yeah, it's terrible.
we were talking before about the significance of this upsurge in protests
Oh
that's
man.
happening right now and why it's happening now. And we were saying that, with these most recent murders, that the privileges of white supremacy have been abolished in effect.
Well, here we have some pictures here for you.
And
You know,
yes, so
demonstrations.
the the hierarchy of oppression in the United States with white Americans having certain privileges has now been put into question, with two white Americans,
Well,
Ms. Good and Alex Petty, having been murdered like that. So like white people are no longer exempt from being treated as if they were like
Well,
anybody else, like a
well,
black American. So
I I
that's
I,
why I think
I
that
like.
there's so much, protest this because it's outrageous, to the thinking of white Americans that white Americans would be shot down in the street like that. So that's why there's such an upsurge happening at this time.
Oh, I think that's true. However, what isn't, well, yeah, I can say a lot about that, because there is an underreporting of murders by police of white people. White people are murdered by police too. It's underreported, and people have not risen up. People have not risen up against it. There have to be, if you think about it, there has to be white people killed by the cops. Because the cops just don't kill black people. They don't just kill Latin people. They kill white people too.
Hmm.
But this murder was on video, and it seems to have. Because I'm gonna say first, I want to say that they have to have killed white people. I mean, it's statistically impossible just to kill blacks, or just to kill Mexicans, or just to kill natives, or just that's not happening. But the problem is that it hasn't been. I'm assuming those murders are occur in so-called criminal activity. I'm assuming that. But and then that may be a bad assumption. Yeah, but there seems to be a concern that God. I thought I had it going on. I thought I was protected because I'm white, and I have a concern about that actually, but I don't know how to address that concern because I don't. I mean, when people protest black people getting shot by the cops, yes, they're protesting racial oppression, but they're also protesting something that they know occurs because black people know that cops will kill you. Yes, don't tell me don't. We know it goes on, and now I think that in this situation, especially around whites who are fighting against social oppression of a non-white group. These are not just average white people.
Hmm.
No, they're not. They're activists against oppression.
Hmm.
But it seems as though a broader community of people, black and white and brown and red and yellow, have wow, look at this. They're killing the protesters. The protesters have been killed, man. People have been killed in Jackson State, Kent State. People have been killed during the George Floyd protest. People were killed. They were killed. So I'm happy to see people finally waking up to the fact that you really don't have any privilege when it comes to the state murdering you. But they were murdered because they stood up against oppression. They put their bodies on the line, and the cops said, "No, we will kill you too."
Hmm.
Also, these are federal troops killing you, not just local police.
Hmm.
That's also important. It's the federal government killing people,
Hmm.
not just the local police department. That's all
Hmm.
to me. To me, that's also very important.
Hmm. Hmm.
The federal government, like Donald Trump's troops, are the
Hmm.
ones who killed them. I'm not saying making a difference with the word police. No, but it's important. It's the federal government doing it.
I have a point to make. Well,
Yeah,
first of all, I want to point out, this beautiful painting of George Floyd in the background here.
yeah.
But um, there's an abstract point, that I can make. It's maybe too abstract. If it's mistaken, please correct me. But the recent murders of these white Americans has enraged white America. Okay, so they're mobilizing. Mhm. But if we look at their names, Ms. Good and Alex Petty, these are Anglo-Saxon names. Now, there's a big difference between the Anglo-American bourgeoisie, national bourgeoisie, and the German-American national bourgeoisie exemplified by Trump, or as his original name, would be pronounced, Trumpf. Okay, so the MAGA people, are aligned, with the German-American bourgeoisie and have taken over the Republican Party. So now you have a split between amongst the bourgeoisie itself, where you have, the factions of the Republicans representing, more so the German national bourgeoisie, and the Democrats representing more so the uh, Anglo national bourgeoisie. Okay. So, if there, um, you know, happens to be these, like Anglo white Americans, who are murdered in the streets by the police, this seems to be okay to the MAGA crowd, because he's still retaining, his basic solid base of support there, in spite of all the protests. So there's a polarization happening, which is related to the demographic differences between the two major blocks of American demographic population of the German Americans, 26%, and the Anglo Americans, 27%, and the rivalry between them in the form of the Republican and Democratic parties. So I think that Trump is still sort of, retaining his solid base of support in spite of all the protests, and that he feels like he's got enough power to go full steam ahead. And in effect, what he's doing is he's provoking a revolution in the United States, even though, Americans are not ready for a revolution. Nonetheless, they have to get ready, and they're sort of beginning to organize, rather lately. And the union movement hasn't jumped on board yet, even though the Minnesota general strike is spreading, but it is not, taken over the whole country. If it did,
Well,
then that would be the power base from which a political revolution could actually happen. But right now,
yeah.
it's not there. If it can happen is another question. I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem to me like, the United Auto Workers are going to be splitting from Trump now, because they want, his economic program to proceed. So even though the AFL-CIO in Minneapolis, did go on general strike for one day and then has been on a slowdown or something like that uh, yesterday as well, it's still locally organized. It's not, a national movement yet, and not a national union movement either. So from afar, that's what it seems, in my perspective on the matter, seems to be, uh, such that despite, the provocations, to carry out a revolution, this is not prepared and cannot succeed in the short term. The only short-term development that I can foresee is in the midterm elections, in which Trump could lose his Republican majority in the House of Representatives of the Congress, and even might lose a majority in the Senate as well. Some of whose seats, are up for re-election as well. In which case, a motion for impeachment could actually succeed, even though, like it happened previously in the first term and resulted in absolutely nothing. Perhaps this time it could go
Well, I,
further.
you know, I think you're hitting on something that, again, isn't a topic of discussion, but should be the role of the unions in protecting the Trump administration. And I'm saying that not all unions are doing that. The nurses are on strike, teachers are going out on strike. But the reports I've received from all the peripheral demonstrations yesterday, Friday, the 30th, yeah, of January, showed very few union contingents. There were a few, but you're very right about this, that the union movement the unions in general are not mobilizing against this, against Venezuela, against Iran war, or against ICE and Border Patrol. You're very right about that. So the question to me is, and I have two questions about this. This is just I'm glad you mentioned this. Are the social movements of the left, I probably shouldn't say it this way, wasting their time reaching out to the unions? I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but maybe that's not the right way to put it. is there a naivete or a lack of understanding reality when this outreach is made? Or should there be any expectation of unions joining forces? I guess I'm trying to say, if I know that you're bankrupt, not the members, but the leadership, if I know that you're bankrupt, do I still have to reach out to you, or do I still have to make you part of the equation? You and I have talked about this when it comes to the struggle for a labor party. And people will tell you, well, we have to have the unions. Well, it's 2026. Mm. The last union, I mean, I'm trying to think of a time when the AFL-CIO, the UAW, USW, the major industrial unions in the United States have come on board for anything radical. I don't know their other I don't know their history, but my knowledge of that kind of history isn't that good. So that's something I maybe shouldn't talk about. But I wonder, when there's a lot of condemnation of the union bureaucracy, which I have no problem with doing it, what's the purpose of the condemnation if, say, they're welded with rust to the imperialist system? Getting their members is one thing. Reaching out to their members is important. The only way that I really don't think the bureaucracy will change until the members change it. That's how I see it.
Hmm.
Because my experience my experience is not anti-union in the sense of we don't need a union. No, I don't agree with that stance. But the union leaderships don't. They seem to be pretty much, in the most cases, welded to the imperialist agenda of the United States, and also welded to welded to ICE terror.
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe and I appreciate you saying this, because it 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 is an issue to discuss. Because you're right. If we had the AFL or UAW, or UAW is definitely not going nowhere, but some members might, or Teamsters supporting these demonstrations with their members, organizing the workplace, shutting it down. You could force Trump out. You could force them out by just withholding labor power, by supporting actions, by just doing things that
Hmm.
shows that you're on the side of you're part of the anti-ICE, anti-border patrol movement. That would have an impact. Yes, it would.
Hmm.
Yes, it would. Even though union membership is low, still it is a powerful political force.
Hmm.
Look at Italy, for example. Totally different situation. Unions come out all the time, like for progressive movements. It's expected. Like, I expect Italian unions to come out for something progressive. I do not expect American unions to do that, because they have no history of doing it. So I'm not attacking them or saying they're useless or reactionary, but I'm saying, in the real world, I have to say, I think you're exactly right. Yep, 100% correct. And it is sobering, because I'm not saying victory is impossible without them, but with them it'll be a hell of a lot easier.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
think you can
not
say that.
the major pivoting point, for politics,
Right,
unlike other countries, because only
right,
10% of the workforce is unionized, actually.
right,
If there
right.
was, like a Chavez, if he were around, and organizing the migrant workers, that would be very helpful right now. If they were all unionized, then they could go on a general strike, together with the protests. But that's not happening. The migrant workers, who are still there, still working and doing all this harvesting and stuff, and the dirtiest work of all for less than minimum wage even. Like where's their organization? They don't seem to be sort of, happening, even though
Well,
it,
that, that that's
did happen in the past.
that's a very good question. I mean, the union I know that organizes farm workers is the United Farm Workers.
Yeah.
And let's see, let me see, and they're based in Delano, California. Yeah, and they actually do organize workers. I mean, they actually do organize the workers who are in fields.
Hmm.
What are they saying these days? Let's see. What are they saying? UFW. Let's see. Um,
United Farm Workers, yeah. If they work
um,
together with the protesters, they could send the protesters could go out into the field, and sign up people into the union, like directly, at the workplace. Go out there into the farms, every farm, and speak to every worker there. That could
well,
happen, but they're not doing that.
let's see what their web page is. I have their web page right here. As a matter of fact, I can pull it up and see. We can let's
While
see
you're
what they're
doing that,
saying.
I heard this week about another sort of, ridiculous thing
What
that's
ridiculous
happening
going on?
here. Okay, what do you have there?
Well, this is from UCLA. Our demonstration at UCLA this week. This is showing that 1,000 students showed up against ICE
Oh
at
yeah,
UCLA. So, we do have the students coming out again.
yeah.
Right here, right in Los Angeles, 1,000 people on
Wow.
Wednesday. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of yeah. Multiracial, people under
Oh
25
yes,
years old.
yes,
Very good.
yes, yes, yes. Very important point. Yeah.
Very, very, yeah. With that, we at least we do have that. I'm looking at the UFW right now to show you.
Uh-huh.
Go on though. You were saying something.
Yeah, like we heard this week, that the Trump administration is making overtures, and making an alliance, with the Alberta, the province of Alberta, which has all the oil sands
Hmm.
in it, are being courted by the Trump administration to separate from Canada and join the United States. Okay, we've heard about this before, but
I
they're
told you that. I told you that 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
I
and
told-
they're moving ahead. Like they're organizing. They're serious about this. So. As I mentioned previously, well, if they want to separate from Canada, then perhaps the First Nations, who, have title to most of the land mass of Alberta, they can separate from Alberta and join in to a real federation here in Canada. But they're trying to do that. They're trying to sort of break up Canada, take off pieces that they
well,
want.
yeah, you know, I don't know. That's a good question. What's going to happen? Because
Well, if
I
if you know if they're doing that, to Canada, then we, Canada, can go to the American states and say, "Hey, we understand that you're pissed off with your king, your new king, and you don't want to sort of, be part of that system. So we welcome you to join into a Federation of Canada here. So we can invite, let's see, we can invite California and maybe, make it into you know, um, an alliance, a federation, with Mexico, together with the states of California, what is it, Oregon, Arizona now, uh, Washington, that's four. Maybe there's another one, and we invite them, to join in the federation, set up a new sort of, alliance. Canada, these four states, West Coast, and Mexico, and then leave the rest of the United States, to somber in its tragedy and the decline under the deindustrialization of the United States by China. And we'll see what happens. And then our federation, in North America between Canada, the West Coast, and Mexico could become bigger than the United States of America in
well,
terms of
that's
economic power, etc.
I would not oppose that.
I like that.
I would not oppose that. I think it would be a step forward. Actually,
Yeah,
it might not meet all of our all of our demands, but it will be a great step forward. Like it or not, it will be a step forward.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I can see
So
that
here is the
happening.
UA, so here is the UFW's webpage. They have a
Uh-huh.
link about don't like about an anti-ICE link here, but it seems to be more about organizing the workers, the farm workers. Here's an
Uh-huh.
article about Border Patrol, an anti-Border Patrol article here, but it's about organizing farm workers into the union. We don't see any calls to go out and take action, immigration, register to vote, e-cards. I don't see anything about going out and striking. But it's just, but there is, like I said, there are. This is a union, or that is a union of farm workers who
Uh-huh.
work the fields. So this is the field workers union, and
Uh-huh.
that's what that is right now.
Well, under Action Center there, it talks about it asks for donations, but it doesn't sort of, talk about any action. There's no action in the Action Center there.
That's what they have. Let me see. They have campaigns.
Yeah, Border
I guess
Patrol is hunting for
organized.
workers. Donate to help us fight back. Okay, but how? Doesn't there's no program, there's no strategy. They should be sending out, like volunteers from the protesters, to organize, all the farm workers, all of them. But no, they're not doing
Yeah,
that. They're just asking for money. For what?
that's what that. Yeah, that's. I think that's a fair criticism. It's very
Yeah,
fair.
I
And
noticed that right away.
yeah. So let me see. That's why I came to the web page to see. We need to look and see what they're doing. Well, let's look and see. Click on the web page and see. And it's pledges, right Congress. So it's basically Democratic Party click activism
Yeah,
orientation. And that's
yeah,
that Facebook donate, store, this kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah,
but it's here. I want our viewers to see this is the as far as we're concerned, and maybe other groups that are doing farm worker work. I'm sure there are, but this is the one that we could reach more quickly. And we don't see here anywhere organize a fight back, strike, pick a boycott, march. This is clearly a march here. This is a march of some type was held somewhere
yeah.
in which UFW was present, but we don't see anything supporting the most recent calls, which should concern us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they have a campaign, it seems, against windmill mushrooms.
Yes.
One farm. That's all they're taking on? Really? No.
So that's it for them.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, there's so much potential, to resist, but
There sure is
it's
potential.
not being done. Neither in organizing, neither in unionizing. And like even here in Canada, there's a lag. The Prime Minister has taken up the banner of Canadian independence against Trump. And as a result, um, his Liberal Party, which is a bourgeois party, Anglo party, has increased its popular support by about 10%. And the opposition of the Social Democratic Party, called the New Democratic Party, the Green Party, have declined in the recent gains that they had made against the Liberal Party. And the Conservatives, which were aligned with MAGA, have gone down even more so. So the Liberal Party is gaining the headway in this campaigning against the continentalization by the United States, which is ongoing, whether it's Democratic or Republican administrations, it's still been ongoing, like for 70 years or so. And, the Liberal Party has taken up, the banner of Canadian nationalism on behalf of the Canadian bourgeoisie, which is rather feeble and exists only in banking and mining. So the whole industrial sector is American subsidiaries here. So Canada is very dependent upon the U.S. continental economy and provides the United States with like about a large part of its oil resources, come from Alberta, and the Canadian Canada seems to have allowed this to happen. Now, the Social Democratic Party, which was originally in the 70s, the uh, the site at which there was a movement developing for an independent and socialist Canada. And this movement was nicknamed the Waffle because they would waffle. They waffled, about whether or not they would declare themselves as a faction within the NDP, New Democratic Party, and then they waffled over whether or not they should quit the NDP because they didn't win the leadership, right away. And then they did eventually quit, except for the Socialist Caucus, which stayed and fought. And then the movement for an independent socialist candidate just withered away when it was outside of the NDP and never recovered. Now, the NDP still hasn't figured out that their internal opposition was correct and they should adopt that program. And even, the most radical of the leadership candidates in the current, leadership race, Avi Lewis, who comes from the Lewis, originally Bundes family, and is a Jewish anti-Zionist, and who is a favorite of mine, to be the leadership candidate, for the NDP. Even he has not, talked about, the nature of Canadian economic independence and this necessary struggle against continentalization, which has revolutionary potential because the Canadian national bourgeoisie is not interested in leading such a fight, even though the Prime Minister Carney is doing so. But Carney is not part of the national bourgeoisie. He's a functionary of the national bourgeoisie. He was the head of the British central bank, and then he was the head of the Canadian central bank. So, like he's educated and he knows economics. Okay, so he knows, how to break from the United States and set Canada up, to be more so a trading partner with Japan, South Korea, China, and Europe, and break away from the United States continentalization. But still, that's still a bourgeois project. So, the potential of a uh, economic liberation process from U.S. continentalization in Canada could have been led, by the socialists, but it wasn't. So we're sort of, caught in a bind there, for the moment. And so that's something that is being led forward, by Carney, but not by the NDP at the present time. So and the unions haven't sort of, figured out, like what the game is there as well, because they don't talk about, geopolitics. They're sort of too localized, just like the United Farm Workers are into, like this mushroom farm and nothing else. So it's we're not ready, for a revolution, but revolution is being thrust upon us.
Yes, it's being thrust upon us. I agree.
Yeah, that's what's necessary
Um,
at this time because there's no other way to go. It's getting worse.
I know we're running short of time, but I would love to talk about more what you just talked about because I was listening very intently about what you call the continentalization. It's a term I have never heard before,
Hmm.
and um, it seems as though we might need to go back to that Alberta situation, which I mentioned 2 weeks ago. And people are laughing about it. I said, no, there's a guy out of Russia who has this. He was on a program. I got his name. I got his name and checked out his website, and he's the one who raised it to me that the U.S. is intent on taking the Alberta referendum and using it to split Canada, to talk Alberta in either some kind of connection with the United States, something, if the Alberta movement wins, it might lose. Who knows? I actually hope it does lose
Hmm.
because, but you're talking about the extraction of raw materials, which
Yeah,
is the colonial.
yeah,
That's the textbook colonial extraction. Resource extraction and leaving the area poor.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's it.
That's what Canada's being used for. extraction
Well,
of
that well,
nickel, uranium,
no,
oil,
yeah.
water, timber, and then exploits the St. Lawrence Seaway as an entry into continental United States. Servicing the cities of Detroit, Chicago, Hamilton, and Toronto. And yet, this waterway is not under the control of Quebec, in whose territory the St. Lawrence Seaway passes.
Who's it under control of?
A Canada-U.S. Treaty,
Oh my
St.
God.
Lawrence Seaway Treaty, it's called, that was negotiated, without Quebec.
And
It's a sort of an internal colony of Canada at the time. But, in Quebec, it's not even an issue. Nobody even talks about this. Nobody even thinks about, the St. Lawrence Seaway, being part of the Quebec territory and it being sort of, taken out of their control by the United States. Even though Quebec, is a very nationalistic, political culture here and may even, go independent. And if Quebec goes independent, then Quebec goes independent. Sorry, if Alberta goes independent or even part of Alberta, then Quebec will go independent as well. That would be the end of Canada. Unless, West Coast USA and Mexico, came in, to renegotiate, the whole continental system here and make it into a
well,
federation of
I I
independent
think that's
republics.
something. I think that's an idea to put out. I think there's an idea to put out there. Why not put the idea out there? Because I think it's something worthwhile of consideration. Because right now the situation just sucks. It's
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, nothing good is coming from it. Nothing. What good is coming from the situation, the lines we have now? Nothing. Just enriching, enriching state capitals, enriching capitalists and industrialists and resource extraction people, maybe enriching marijuana farmers. And wineries. They're getting their money, but the people who live in these regions, people who live in the regions, still don't have any health care. The schools stink. The environment's getting all screwed up. Why not try something else?
Hmm.
How much worse could it be?
Yeah. Okay, I think
That's
we've
my
touched on all the major points. And
thank
this
you.
weekend,
Thank
we'll see whether or not, the Trump goes through with his threat to attack Iran.
you.
But
Or like I said,
if
I
they're listening,
I think the bombing.
if they're
I
listening, they realize that Iran is ready for them, and if they're, if they have any sort of second thoughts, they had, better sort of, pay attention to them,
well,
because if they don't,
or there actually might be backdoor negotiations going on
yeah,
too.
or maybe they're just bluffing, as Trump does, quite often, they're bluffing, because they want to, increase their bargaining power. Huh. Okay.
Whatever. That's
Yeah, whatever. Okay, good. Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Until next week, then, here we are,
Until
here
next
now.
week. Here we are. Here we are. Here now.